What's up, everybody? Welcome to On Pod with your host, Just JD, and I'm the guy who doesn't know how to introduce a podcast. Anyway, I'm joined today by my guest, Matthew. We've been friends for a very long time. So, Matthew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Matthew. I've known JD since maybe 7th or 8th grade. We've known each other for nearly 5 or 6 years. Crazy how time flies by. Since you have a hard time introducing this podcast, JD, maybe you should tell the audience how hard it was to set up.
Oh, dude. Honestly, I could not. Oh, okay. I meant to have this started recording. As of right now, it's like 1:46. I meant to start recording this at noon, but I've had such a hard time getting feedback, having feedback loops and messing with like computer stuff and effects. It's been absolutely insane. So, podcasting is a lot harder than I thought. Can't introduce and can't set it up, but hey, this is just a one big learning experience for me as of now. Anyway, today we'll be talking about accountability and how, I don't know, we don't have enough of it in the world. So, to open up the conversation and get some, creative juices flowing, some argumentative juices flowing. Did you see what Skittles did last month for Pride Month?
I believe they took out the rainbows, correct?
They took out all the colors. They just didn't have any. It was just all gray. That was it. The entire packaging was gray. I don't know if the actual Skittles were gray,
No,
but the packaging was gray.
I think the Skittles were gray. No, I think they were.
I mean, it's fucking insane. Like, what's the point? What are you accomplishing doing that?
I don't understand why people are like praising them for such. And it's not even, it's mainly the LBGT community too. I feel like they should want more and expect more out of these companies instead of just doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, I mean that's really fair, and it's like it's not like they're taking some actual stance. It's companies trying to pretend that they're human. But if you're a company, if you're like this multi-million dollar conglomerate, you're not human anymore. You're a company. You don't get to have opinions on things like this. Companies don't have opinions on like social welfare and the people that they supply products for. Like they just don't have an opinion on that. They can have opinions on like their own workers, but again, that's a business thing. You're not a person at that point, you're a business. Like that's why they're separate entities. So I don't know. I've always thought it was disingenuous. It's just saving face, and people let that slide. For like 1 month, all the different companies will change their Twitter profile picture to a rainbow or do some kind of weird promotion and send that out, and then think that's enough to overcount, marginalized groups. Same for like they did it during the Black Lives Matter protest. They just did the whole like black logos, and they thought that was enough. So I just think it's real dumb, and no one ever holds them accountable for it. We just let it slip.
Personally speaking, I think the best thing a business could do is just not take a stance. And not, because to be honest with you, what when they do take a stance and they're supporting, they usually do the bare minimum. And then the other side of the argument is that now they're opposing and now that's bad. So honestly, the best thing they can do is just not take a stance.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a culture thing, too. Everybody expects everybody to have a stance on something. And if you don't have a stance, that means you're against it. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, there are just things that people just don't understand. Would you rather someone try to have some, like, batshit crazy stance, something they have no idea what they're talking about, or just not take a stance at all? Sometimes it's not about, like, not caring or whatever. It's just you don't want to have a stance because it's not something that either interests you or something that you just don't know enough about. And I think it's pretty disingenuous for someone to like if someone who knows nothing about Palestine and Israel, if they try to have some profound idea about how to solve the problem in the Middle East. Like I don't fucking know anything about that, so why would I have an opinion on it? And companies do that same kind of thing. And it's not just companies too. It's even like in politics, you'll have like right and left making like insane targeting at each other.
And then mentioning that, they also like you said, they target people who don't take a stance, which is usually centrists and independents. and they tried to demonize centrists and independents by saying, well, if you don't side with us, that must mean you're with the opposing party, and that's just not the case. Like you said, some people just might not be educated, or some people might look into it, and honestly, they might find some things that they agree with and some things that they disagree with on both sides. So they stay in the middle, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm a centrist over here all the way. If I had to pick a side, it would be more left than I am right. But like, I'm hated by both sides because I'm like the France of the political party. I never take a stance, and I'm just sort of like, oh, okay, well, I like this, I don't like this. I think things are fine the way they are. Well, I mean, obviously not now. There are things that need to be changed, but I don't really have an opinion on that. So like, just everybody has it out for me. So it's kind of like, okay, uh, I'm gonna head out. I don't need to mess around with any of this. But I don't know. That's just my thought on it.
My personal belief is that in life, you can never have too much of something. Life has a way of balancing things out and keeping things in check. You can never have too much of something, because if you have too much of something, then that leads to problems. And you can kind of see that with the political spectrum. If you lean way too left, there are problems, and if you lead lean way too right, there are problems there. And someone made a joke that honestly, what you realize is that the political spectrum, it's just a circle, not a line. They just come back to each other. So
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like the whole Ouroboros thing, for those of you who don't know, Ouroboros is like this Russian thing where it's like the snake eating its own tail and it's perpetually eating its own tail. That's basically all the political landscape is. It's just fucking people biting each other and just perpetually eating their own tails and eating their own words and making things worse for just everybody because it's like, come on, we don't need to have, and that's just the greater problem with the two-party system in general. That's just a problem with that. And there's not really anything we can do about that unless the unless we get like a fucking five-party system. But it's whatever. And even then, it's just I think it's so arbitrary to put people into groups. Like to say that you're this or this.
because like we said, there's just Democrat and Republican aren't good enough labels to describe what somebody believes in, because there are Democrats who disagree with what other Democrats believe in, and there are Republicans who disagree with what other Republicans believe in. So it's not fair to assume that they all have the same belief, and the two-party system also makes it so much easier to like blame the opposing side, and so much easier to demonize the other side and disagree with them. And that just goes back to like the whole not taking accountability for your own things. It's so easy to just scapegoat something else rather than taking your own accountability. I would rather prefer it if some Democrats and Republicans, which there are some who do, but I wish the extremists acknowledge that, yeah, my party has faults, and so does the other party, but I mean, the other party also has some good things, So I don't know.
I'm sorry, I had to yawn. But yeah, like it's just, and like you'll hear people say stuff like I'm economically left or I'm socially right or they'll use those kinds of descriptions to describe their own political party, and it's like, dude, why do you have to say you're one thing or another? Like, why do we have those why do you have to put people into boxes, put them, oh well, you fit here, you fit there. It doesn't make any sense. I think it just does more harm than good because then you end up just boxing people off, and then it's like, oh well, now I get to treat this person differently because they have this big label about them, throwing like labels on people just doesn't really solve anything. It just again allows us to marginalize people, makes it easier to marginalize, and that's just a huge issue in this country, or just really in the world in general.
I see this on like TikTok and just social media in general all the time. What you were talking about is that people are just so obsessed with labels, and then it goes as far as to, well, if you belong in this group, your opinion and your feelings are invalidated, and that's just such a backwards way of thinking. Like, that's how people back then used to think. That's exactly how people back then used to think. So we're not making any progress with that mindset at all. Like society is supposed to be at a stage where where labels shouldn't matter. People are just people, but it's not. We still have problems such as racism and sexism because people are so concerned with what group this person belongs to, and you want to marginalize these people because of the group that they belong to.
Yeah, and I mean, a perfect example of this. You can look at the Gen Z versus millennial war on TikTok. I don't know how many people were following that, but it was one of the most batshit crazy things I've ever seen, right? You had all of Gen Z and all of the millennials just dissing each other back and forth, going on about middle parts and skinny jeans, and it was just the dumbest thing ever. Because you and I, we're Gen Z, we fit into that, but I don't watch Harry Potter. I hate Harry Potter, and I don't wear skinny jeans. But I do have a middle part, and I put my hair in a bun. So it's just so dumb because you're boxing all these people in, and you're saying, oh, because you're born a generation, that's what you like. Because you're born a baby boomer, you're racist. Because you're born Gen Z, you're some like SJW social warrior or something. Or you want to cancel Eminem. I don't want to cancel Eminem because I'm Gen Z. I don't want to cancel him at all. I think he makes great music. But like, and then again, it's just all these old people fighting young people on the internet for internet points, and it's so dumb. And that just highlights a big issue with just, again, marginalization, the big issue, and there's just no accountability for it. Because again, they're going to get their likes and they're going to get their shares and they're going to get their followers up. And they're going to, do all of that and they're going to keep doing it for those returns because it pushes that endorphin button in your brain, and that's just sort of how it goes.
Like you were saying, just labels in general just perpetuate stereotypes. And then when you use labels, you're judging a person by said label stereotypes. And so you're no longer the you're no longer viewing the person as an individual anymore. You're no longer judging that person by their characteristics and their personality and the decisions that they make. You're just judging them by their labels, and that's very problematic. So,
And honestly, I wouldn't even go that far because you can overcome whatever label you have, right? You can overcome whatever label that you're going to have and show your personality through that. But it does create the issue of like, that's going to justify your first impression, right? If if I go up to somebody and someone's like, "Oh, he went to jail once," which is true, that's gonna they're gonna have all these predetermined assumptions about me or whatever, and they're gonna have these judgments already ahead of time. Whenever they meet me, they'll realize that, oh, he's just a nice guy, and it was just a overblown thing. But the point is that those labels will follow you around, and they force people to make assumptions. And I do think you can overcome a label. Like I do think if you, talk enough or something, you can eventually overcome that, and you can prove that you're different or whatever, you're unique and you're not defined by that label. But that label is always going to be a part of you, and it's always going to make people, that's going to justify their first impression, which is why I think it's disingenuous, especially when like companies or things perpetuate this. So, no, fuck, I ran out of topics. We ran this shit to the ground.
we did. I think we hit all the points that we wanted to hit with this. So, on a lighter note,
You ever watch Breaking Bad?
I have not.
You haven't seen Breaking Bad?
I look, Breaking Bad, I'm aware. I mean, I've been on the internet before, so of course I have to know what Breaking Bad is. I know it's a legendary show.
It is one of the greatest
I
shows
know
I've
it's
ever
one of the
seen.
greatest shows. It's legendary. It's
One of the
legendary.
greatest shows I've ever
Iconic, legendary, everything about it, yes. I just haven't gotten around to it. That's the one normal show, I guess normal show that I would consider watching.
Yeah, I mean it's so good, and like I could make an entire episode dedicated specifically to Breaking Bad. And you know what? Fuck it. Maybe this one could be a Breaking Bad episode because I want to talk about Breaking
Well,
Bad.
I know nothing about Breaking Bad. So
I'll
please,
explain it to you and how great it is.
I mean,
Well, I mean, no spoilers, obviously, but
like thematic elements and
yeah, thematic elements. Looking at it critically, because I do think it's a really well put together show. The main character, Walt, I mean, one, even in the first season, you get to see all these character arcs pan out, right? You get to watch the characters fall apart and crumble and then rebuild themselves and then crumble again until you end up with, the season 5 Walter White that's like a fucking criminal mastermind and insane, right? But like, I mean, and you're challenging just these normal people, right? Walter White, he's just and I think his character arc is the best out of all of them because I think it's so interesting because he's this timid guy. He's this timid high school chemistry teacher who's watched everybody he knows surpass him in every way imaginable. And then he's like gets cancer. And then he's like, "Okay, hold up. I don't make enough money to support my family and all these cancer bills are going to pile up. I'm not going to have enough money because healthcare." So he has to turn to, cooking meth because he's a chemistry teacher. He uses those skills and he teams up with an old student of his to do it, and they start this whole like meth sort of thing, this whole meth cooking thing. But like you get to watch all these characters change, right? Jesse, he goes from this junkie stoner who doesn't know what he's talking about and flunked out of high school to someone who wants to learn about chemistry and wants to grow and be a better person. Even if he's not, or even if he doesn't think he does, he's trying to, be better. Same with Walter. He's watching his family fall apart and he's watching all the harm he's causing and he has to just keep going with it. Like there's this one really impactful scene where he's talking to someone and he's like, "My family thinks I'm on the edge of bankruptcy and that I'm not able and that I don't have any money, but I have more money than they can ever fathom and I can ever spend in my lifetime." And you get to watch just these characters break. And Bryan Cranston, the guy who plays Walt, he was casted perfectly because he fits the role so well. Like it's scary how in character he gets. Like it's hard to remember. Like sometimes it's hard to forget or hard to remember that he's an actor and not actually Walter White. So, but I mean, if I gotta recommend one show, it's gonna be Breaking Bad, just because it's so good, and I don't ever remember it dragging. Like there are some weird plot points I don't really care for. I think in season 2 they have this weird plane thing where a plane explodes. I never really understood the significance of that, but I mean it was still interesting and it was cool to see the dichotomy and everything and how the actions of other characters affect lives. Because at the end of the day, it really is just about Walt and Jesse and their actions, where they and who they have an effect on, which is again why I think it's a beautiful show. Even if you don't particularly like that genre of TV, which is the crime drama, you're talking like Narcos and whatever. Breaking Bad is one that I will always recommend. That and Weeds is another really good show, and it's basically Breaking Bad but with a suburban mom and weed instead of meth.
I've seen Bryan Cranston in some other works, particularly that Godzilla movie, and I thought he
The
did
new one?
It was like it released in like 2014.
Oh, okay, okay.
He did a really good job. His character was definitely the best, the most engaging, the most interesting, had the most going for it. And they underutilized him so much. He was like killed in like the first act. And that really sucked because he was the most interesting character out of the whole cast. And now we just got this like generic soldier boy, but that's like you an interesting topic is that you said that the characters in Breaking Bad, they went through character development.
Yeah.
And they had an arc.
They pack so much into like you they have an entire character arc for one character in like 3 episodes. And it is feels like a season-long character arc being packed into 3 episodes, which isn't a complaint. It's impressive because they pack the same amount of content you get from a season-long character arc into 3 episodes, which is just impressive.
So something I've noticed when I go on social media sites and people are talking about their favorite shows is that one of the biggest things that they use to recommend the show, to show that it's good and they recommend it to others, is the fact that like their characters go through substantial character arcs and they go through tons of development. Would you say that character development necessarily equates good writing, or is it mainly the execution? Like, can you think of any good stories where a character stays stagnant but it's still a really good show. Or
Family Guy.
Simpsons, those kinds of. I think it's a very specific thing, right? If you're gonna have this narrative that like overstretches multiple seasons, like a show like Breaking Bad or The Flash or Supernatural, a show that has this whole plot point to it, and it has this big overstretching this big plot that stretches multiple seasons. You need to have character development because if not, it's just gonna stagnate and be boring. You ever seen Invincible?
on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I have.
So, oh man, I'm drawing Amber, right? That was Mark's girlfriend. I think it was Amber.
um I didn't like her. She didn't have a good character arc because she stayed the same throughout the entire show. She never changed. She was always confident, strong, and a go-getter and knew exactly what she wanted, but she was also a real bitch. Mark Grayson did nothing wrong, by the way.
I think one of the biggest problems with Amber is this is completely off topic. It might not have to do with the
How
her
just cut it out
development,
if it's bad.
but just her as a character. Something that never made sense to me was when Mark saved them during the college incident from like the zombie robot,
Yeah,
and then it's revealed later on that she knew
all the time.
the
For, like,
whole
weeks.
time his identity. So then at that point, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not being empathetic enough, but I don't know where she's coming from. I really don't know where, like, I understand I understand that you're mad at him for keeping this from me, but at the same time she's also mad at him because he also
Saving
left.
lives.
Exactly. Left. He's still there though. He's helped.
Just Invincible instead of Mark Grayson.
Yeah, so I don't understand where she's coming from that point of view.
And like again, I can understand being hurt by him keeping that.
That from you or whatever, that's fine. I mean, again, I go back to the Flash. That was a big plot point between Barry and Iris, is that she didn't know he was the Flash, and it caused a lot of tension with them because he never told her. But it's a secret identity. I mean, Mark makes a very big point about this. Whenever she's yelling at him, he's saying, but it's a secret identity. I have to keep it a secret. I do that for you and I do that for me. And again, she does. She had that same point of like, well, I've known for like weeks now, and I've been waiting on you to tell me. What the fuck, Amber? How about you maybe talk to your boyfriend and say, hey, are you a superhero? Be real with me. And tell him, and then you can talk about it, and you can actually have a good dialogue, right? And especially because you're gonna let him feel so bad about missing you and missing out on you, and like, and I get it, he was neglecting you and he wasn't being, the best boyfriend, but can you blame him? He's kind of saving lives.
And I still don't understand. You're still mad at him for not being there, but he was there. He was there. If you knew his identity, if you knew he's invincible, why are you mad at him? He was there for you when you needed him. During the college incident, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand the whole. He was like neglecting her and stuff, but like you said, I mean, he was saving lives.
Yeah, he was saving lives.
Yeah.
So even if you do want to have that point, which I understand being upset about that, like that's pretty fair.
But you gotta at least understand, hey, he's at least, I mean, he's not out there like cheating on me or ignoring me. He's saving lives of people who are dying. And who can do more good? Mark Grayson or Invincible? Who can do more good and still keep people safe? So and back to what we were talking about, character arc being a part of shows. That's a really good example of a character that never develops. I mean, maybe they're setting her up to have this big character arc where she realized she's been a real bitch in the first season and the second season. She'll have that character arc, but again, I just don't know. Because, and even then, why would you set it up that long? At least lay the groundwork for her to start realizing what she's doing wrong. But
It just came out of left field because, like you
Yeah.
said, there wasn't nothing leading up to that. So it just came out of left field, and now we have problems where it doesn't align perfectly, and we're questioning why, because it just doesn't make any sense. So that's why we're left questioning what are her motives? Why does she feel this way?
Because they don't make any sense.
Exactly.
And I mean, again, like, when back to our original topic.
You know, talking about how character arcs make or break a show and how it's important for good writing. Invincible is a show that has an overarching narrative. It has a story that it's trying to share. So, if the character arcs are lackluster or not good enough, then we're going to end up with these issues where the show just isn't entertaining and it's not fun. It becomes a drag to watch Invincible because you're going to see Amber and you'll be waiting, okay, come on, I'm done with Amber. I want to watch Mark save somebody, or I want to watch his friend fall in love with a guy or something. I don't know. Whatever people watch Invincible for. I want to see the blood.
So,
Okay, I want to go that far. I'm not a fan of gore. I got it.
pussy, I love gore.
I don't like gore. I don't know how people get satisfaction from it. Like, is it shock? Is it like a weird feeling where you like the fact that you feel so like mortified by
I mean,
it?
for me, it's just fun.
What do you mean fun?
I honestly couldn't explain that. I just know
you're
that
mortified,
train scene.
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's gross, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god, this is insane.
Yeah, you got that chip in you, right? I'm not talking to a psychopath right now.
Yeah. It's yeah, I want to see gore in real life. Let's see. I have a machete in my closet. Let's go ahead and make some in real life.
That's one of JD's projects right now. He's actually having like a whole like escape room right now, like Saw style.
Yeah, Saw style escape room.
Gosh.
You have to like cut your leg off with one of my tomahawks.
Oh my god.
Or like, Jesus.
Gosh.
But yeah, and like, I don't know what.
And about the gore, like I mean, I don't know what I like about gore. I think it's just fun. And I think there's a difference between gore for the sake of gore and just that shock value, and then there's gore for the sake of plot. Because whenever there's gore in
Invincible, there's a reason for it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's a reason for the gore to exist.
it's you like in the fight with Omni-Man and Invincible. That fight between them, whenever they do the train scene and all that blood and guts and everything is falling over them, that's to accentuate a point of how powerful Mark and Omni-Man are. And it's showing how, okay, well, these two characters are unbelievably powerful. This is what happens when Vitramites fight. If you look at the comics, which I watched a guy talk about the comics for like an hour, when you look at the comics, you have that same blood, and it's just the same point. It's always to make sure that, you know, this is the effects of superheroes. This is what it's like if superheroes existed. I think another show that does this really well is The Boys. That is an amazing show, and I think and again, another one of those shows where you have a very strict character arc and you have the gore that accentuates the plot. Invincible and The Boys are very, very similar. It's the same concept with a different coat of paint. And unlike Invincible, The Boys doesn't have an Amber, which is always a fun thing not to include.
I will say this, Invincible's gore is actually tolerable because, like you said, it actually services the plot, and it also, the gore, the characters like Mark, he actually reacts to it and he's mortified, and it just goes to show how inhumane Omni-Man is, and how like he sees humans as so insignificant that he's just killing them left and right, and how he just sees them as like pests, cattle, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he sees them as people for him to
subvert or make them do his bidding. Like, that's his whole point. That's why he's at Earth, is he's there to conquer the planet and make it a Vitramite planet. Like, that's his whole shtick. And that's not a spoiler because it's in the comics. So, but the thing with I mean, and it goes back to like that gore. And I mean, even in like The Boys, you know, they do a really good job of reacting to the gore.
Oh, that airplane scene was
oh my
amazing.
God, the airplane scene was bizarre. When all the people were crying and like, save us.
It just showed
like,
how
nah, bruh.
Homelander just showed, gosh, that's
one of my favorite scenes. Well, I have two favorite scenes. I love the scene where A-Train is
Like high on like V or whatever it was called, like chemical compound V, and then he just cleans straight through Huey's girlfriend.
Ooh,
that scene was hilarious.
God, hilarious.
Well, I thought it was funny because it was like
hilarious.
I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible for him. No, wait. I promise I'm not I'm. You know what? I'm just gonna cut all this out. That way people don't think I'm a
Sociopath. So that's the joys of editing your own podcast, is you get to control the narrative.
Gosh, I'm gonna edit my voice so that I'm the one who's like, ah, yes, gore,
Yeah,
blood.
yeah.
Gosh.
I'm gonna change whenever we introduce ourselves. I'm gonna switch our names around. That way, like you'll say, "Oh, I'm JD. I'm Matthew," and then boom, then we have it. Now I can just gaslight you into thinking, "Oh, I'm a monster" or something, or gaslight my audience.
Whatever it is. But yeah, and like the scene whenever A Train runs through Huey's girlfriend, or even the scene when like Huey sticks the C4 up what is it?
He's
Translucent.
invisible. Yeah.
Translucent. Whenever he sticks the C4 up Translucent's ass and blows him up, and there's all that goo, all of them react to it. Of course, like oh god, I'm drawing a blank on the names. The other people in the boys, god, I'm drawing a blank on their names. I feel horrible now because I love that show. But all the other members of the boys, they don't react as heavily as Huey does because they're desensitized to that kind of thing. But Huey's like, "Oh my god, what did I just do? This is insane." And then some again, it's kind of like the Breaking Bad sort of character arc where he snaps and then he becomes a new character, darker and more gritty. Which again, character arcs are important for shows like this. You can't have a good show without a good character arc unless it's episodic like South Park or Family Guy. You don't need a character arc for that.
The important thing about character arcs, though, is that they have to line up with what's already established.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm looking.
If it's a bad spoiler, I'll just cut it out.
I'm looking at. No, I don't want to spoil this for you.
Oh, what is it?
I'm looking at you. I'm just gonna preface. I'm not gonna say anything, but this is all I'm gonna say.
Is it a?
I'm looking at you.
I'm
looking at you. Attack on Titan.
No.
No, don't worry. I'm not
Oh,
gonna
don't say anything about Attack on
Don't
Titan.
worry.
I
I'm
haven't
not gonna
seen
say
it yet.
anything. But
I'll mute your mic, bruh.
character arcs. The end result needs to be.
It needs to make sense.
It needs to make sense with what's already established.
And
it needs to align.
AOT failed at that.
I
Or they did a
personally
good
think.
job.
I feel like AOT kind of fumbled the ball.
They dropped the ball.
They dropped the ball.
I have to watch AOT. I got like kind of confused.
How they were like in the start of the 4th season, which I'm not super far into it. I'm only like 2 or 3 episodes into it. How they were covering like the past or whatever.
Oh, episode.
I kind of lost all that.
Episode 7 of season 4 is hands down my favorite Attack on Titan episode, hands down.
Yeah.
But honestly, the best arc so far, or I think of all, is season 3 part 2. It had the most payoff. Everything that was set up in season 1.
It's been a while since I've seen it, so can you remind me real quick?
It was when they returned to the original city that was attacked at the very start.
Right. Okay.
And then there was like the death charge, and the Beast Titan. You remember he was throwing the rocks.
And then Armin became the Beast Titan,
or
not the Beast Titan.
the Colossal Titan.
He became the Colossal Titan.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get what you're saying now. Yeah, no, that was a really good, and again, a great character arc. I'm kind of upset to watch AOT 4 now because I'm kind of worried that the character arc is going to disappoint me. But I mean, like, you're right, if a character is established a certain way and then they have a character arc that doesn't relate to their character, it just again feels disingenuous. If all of a sudden Amber had some character arc where she became a drug dealer, it wouldn't make any sense because that doesn't fit her character and it doesn't fit whatever's established in the world.
Come out of left field.
Exactly, it would come out of left field, and then it just sort of like, okay, I appreciate what you're doing, but like, why is the question? What's the point of that? Why are you doing this? I don't know. But I mean, like, again, it's just how important character arcs are. They need to happen, and it's better to have a decent character arc than no character arc at all.
Unless, once again, it's the thing about
Episodic.
the thing about characters with I think this is how I would describe it. To determine whether your character should change, or I feel like when it comes to characters who don't have a character arc, usually to compensate for that, they're put into situations that are completely different from their normal environment.
Like it forces them to do something unique or different
Yeah,
to show off the character they do have.
yeah, exactly. Like the environment that is constantly changing, and that's why an episodic series would totally work, because it's always just like throwing your characters into like zany like. That's my personal
The
opinion.
prime example of that, you ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I've seen, I've seen some clips.
That is hands down one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
That is my favorite sitcom ever. Because, you know, you watch shows like Friends, and again, it's that there are character arcs, there are overarching stories, there are people talking. But in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the gang, they're the exact same in season 1 that they are in season 14. They never grow, they never change, they're always the exact same. They're horrible, they're just bad people. Like, and that's their whole thing, and that works. It's a great show. It is an amazing show. I do think the later seasons are kind of like not as good, just because I don't personally enjoy them all that much.
I feel like that. I feel like that can be applied to any like.
Yeah, that's true for anything.
That can no. That can be applied to most comedy related things, because at that point it feels like you're dragging the
Yeah.
joke and the premise weights. You're pushing it to its limits.
Because there are only so many jokes you can make
Yeah.
before it starts to get repetitive and you start repeating yourself.
But I mean, that's true for really any show. Like the whole character drag and everything, or TV show drag. It's just a thing that happens. I mean, you watch a show like The Flash, and you can have your problem with the inconsistencies, which I do. I don't think The Flash is The Flash doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense how Barry is able to lose all these fights because, you know, super speed. But, you know, I digress. I still enjoy the show, but it does start to drag in the later seasons where it's kind of like, okay, you're just. How many times can I watch a speedster fight another speedster? How many times can I watch that before I just sort of am like, okay, I'm done. Like, that's enough of this.
It's like Pokemon with Ash Ketchum as the main character. Why the heck is his level probably like level 100 Pikachu that's fought against literal gods? Why is he getting beat by a level 5 Snivy?
Dude, oh my god, I watched an episode from the Game Theorists. Do you know them?
Yeah, everyone knows
Matt
who
Pat.
Game-
Yeah, of course
everyone
everybody knows who that
it's
is.
we're internet.
Matt Pat's a legend, bro. I love him. I love his content.
I feel like we live in this age where the internet, pop culture is like everything.
Yeah, it's
so
everything.
yeah, so of course I would know who Game Theory is.
Oh yeah, I love Game Theory, but
I used to watch his. This is kind of embarrassing, but I used to really enjoy his like Five Nights at Freddy's
Dude,
theory video.
I still love the Five Nights at Freddy's theory.
To be
videos.
honest with you,
they're so entertaining.
They're really thought out. They honestly, God honestly, are well thought out. To be honest with you.
And he makes he has really good evidence. He says a lot of things. He has a lot of points. He makes.
To be
it
honest,
just makes sense.
To be honest with you, his like his very like all his theories up to the third game are way more narratively like satisfying and narratively concise in the actual canon that the creators created. Like I actually think Game Theory constructed a way better story than the actual creator.
Oh yeah, for sure. He's
And see, this was always my thought, is that I was always kind of thinking, okay, there's no way Scott Cawthon is planning all this stuff out, right? Because of how in-depth Matt Pat goes. There's no way Scott Cawthon is planning out this entire arc. There's no way he foresaw being able to make like 6 games or like 13 games or something like that and then having a book series at the same time. Like, there's no way he was able to foresee all that. So what I've always wondered, and if I ever get a chance to interview Scott Cawthon, this is a question I'm gonna ask, is did he ever have like a big plan for the series, or did he just go off of what other people said and think, oh well, there's this one guy on YouTube who's making a joke or who's talking about this possible overarching narrative, and then he just added it in there as an afterthought? Because I just don't get how you can come up with something like that. I mean, I get how you can if you like plan it out ahead, but I don't know. I feel like an indie developer for a game wouldn't really think about this crazy plot that stretches, you know, different universes and has this massive timeline, because there's no way he foresaw the and he's said this before, is that he's never foreseen the popularity that it could have pop culture wise.
it's got to be a combination. I feel like
Yeah.
he had somewhat of an idea of where he had a general idea of what like the secret story or what the narrative would be, but I feel like once MatPat started,
Yeah.
he started sprinkling with
And the
others.
entire fandom too, not just Matt
Yeah,
Pat,
true,
but
yeah.
everybody.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And yeah, and then he just sort of throws that because that would also explain why Matt Pat gets confused in some of his videos, where he's like, "Look, I have these two things that make sense, and I have these two puzzle pieces, but I can't get them to connect. Maybe it's because that part isn't there yet because he hasn't written it. You know, that's what I've always thought. But it could be a lot of things, you know."
Hmm. I really used to enjoy the Five Nights at Freddy's series.
And I still enjoy them.
The games were really fun too. Well,
I never played the games.
I got love with you. This is gonna sound blasphemous, but I didn't really enjoy the first game mechanically wise. It's where you shut the doors and
Yeah.
stuff. The second one, I love the second one. It's where you like put the mask on and stuff like that. I really like that one mechanically.
I bought 1 through 3 on Steam because I think they were on sale, but I couldn't. I just never ended up playing through them. Not because I was like scared or anything, but just because I didn't really have fun playing it. I mean, it was not bad. It just wasn't my kind of game.
Five Nights at Freddy's games were never scary.
No, they weren't.
Never, never.
I mean, I don't think any jump scare, and people who like scream at the jump scares or whatever, that's fine. Have a jump scare isn't the same as being scary.
Mhm.
A jump scare is just surprising you. If I go
That's
you might jump if I do that out of nowhere.
it's shock.
It's
It's
shock.
not terror. That's the important thing. You have it's a presence. You need to have a presence. That's just a one and done kind
And-
of deal.
Yeah, I think one
One of my favorite horror movies is Insidious. That show, I had to turn on a light watching it because I kind of got spooked because it wasn't even scary. It was just the fact that it was so creepy. It was so creepy using dreams and astral projection and everything. And like sleep paralysis scares the piss out of me. I'm glad I don't have sleep paralysis because that would suck or have to deal with it. But like that kind of stuff, sleeping, it's freaky, man. And Insidious was like one of the only horror movies to make me feel that kind of dread. And that's real horror, right? That's not just a jump scare or some cheap jump scare in a loud like atonal yell. That's an actual, scary thing. Or I know you know this one, As Above So Below. I love that movie.
You've seen it, right?
Yeah, I was there with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It was me, you, Anthony Canyon?
I don't know.
Or was it Xander?
I think it was you and Xander. I don't think it was. I don't think I was there because I watched As Above So Below with.
with Noah?
Oh, gotcha.
These are all friends of mine for viewers who don't know me personally.
I definitely like it's the presence. I don't know
Yeah.
how to word it, but just the ambiance, I guess, is how you would.
And I usually hate found footage movies, stuff like the Blair Witch. I just don't like them, but that one was really good. And if I recommend any horror movie, I'd say Insidious and As Above, So Below, because that one really got me.
Do you watch any animes?
I don't watch a whole bunch of anime, but I will watch them every now and then.
Gotcha. Which ones have you watched?
I've seen the first 3 seasons of AOT, Assassination Classroom. I've seen I think up to part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I love JoJo's. That's a fun show. I think part 1 and part 2 they get a bad rap, but I really like them.
Part 1 definitely gets a bad rep. I
Part
don't know
1
about
gets a
part
bad
2.
rap.
Part 2.
I like that one.
I think part 2 has a pretty good sized fan base that
Part 2 is
appreciates
really
it.
good. That's the one where they're traveling to find Dio, right?
No,
No.
that's part 3.
That's part 3.
Part
okay.
3 also Part 3 gets a bad rep because that's the most I think it's probably the most iconic.
Part 3 bangs, bro.
JoJo. So a lot of people might say that it's overrated,
Yeah.
which is fair. It might not be the best story but I mean, you don't have to hate on it because
Oh,
of that.
exactly.
I don't like people who just hate on something because it's popular.
Mainstream doesn't mean bad.
Exactly.
There's a reason things are mainstream. Breaking Bad is mainstream because it's good.
Yeah.
People like good things.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. Maybe oversaturation may be about, but even then, it's just because something's popular, you just don't.
I mean, take podcast talking about oversaturation. Talk about podcasting. Like there are so many podcasts popping up every day. You know how hard it was to find a name for this? I was gonna do everything but the kitchen sink, but there were 7 podcasts that had that exact same name on Spotify.
No way.
Yep.
Really?
7.
My gosh.
It was bizarre. So I had to, and I just kept scrambling, trying to think, oh God, what am I gonna name my podcast? Because that was the coolest name I could think of. And then I came up with On Pod.
Which
but-
probably exists as well.
Mm-mm.
No, it
I
doesn't.
googled it. I looked up. I searched and tried to find a podcast called On Pod,
You mean-
but I did not.
You mean tell me humans have existed for I don't even know how many
And
years,
podcasting has been popping off for like the last 3 years.
and no one has thought of the name
On
On
Pod.
Pod.
Hey,
Not-
maybe
there-
people have thought about it, but no one's published a podcast.
There are at least 7 billion people on this planet. All of them could be potential podcasters, and not one of them has thought On Pod.
No.
That's crazy.
Or at least if they have, they haven't put it on Spotify.
That's crazy.
I'm sure people have come up with that idea, because at the end of the day, like, are any ideas really original anymore? Like,
Regurgitated.
are original ideas even possible at this point?
True.
Because so much has been done, and every idea you make is based off of an older idea or an
Mhm.
influence.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't start a pod. I'm not the first person to ever come up with the idea to make a podcast. I'm the one who came up with the idea for me to start one. But,
You can argue that even original ideas, like the first ever podcast, was influenced by something else.
based off of a radio show.
Yeah, exactly. So you could say that any original idea is just based off of influenced by something else. So.
Yeah, I mean, everything is based off of an influence. So at the end of the day, is anything original? To me, an original thought is just a thought that you come up with. I make up smoothie jokes all the time at work. Because I work at Smoothie King. Assistant manager, don't mean to boast or anything. But either way, I work at Smoothie King, and on my shift, every now and then I'll just start coming up with smoothie-based jokes. Like, some dude ordered a smoothie yesterday, and I asked if he wanted some protein in there, and he said no whey. Because whey is a type of protein.
You didn't have to. I make protein shakes, JD.
Okay, forgive me for being worried that no one's going to get my amazing whey protein joke, but whatever.
I mean, come on. Supposedly everyone on TikTok is into.
Health, fitness stuff now, so.
Exactly. Everyone became a bodybuilder over
Fitness-
summer. Like literally, just out of nowhere, we all went from. We got into anime. We played video games, and now we got into stocks. We also got into podcasts. Podcasting's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And now, lifting. Everyone's
Like
into
our friend
lifting
group?
now.
Or just in general.
Just in general,
Oh,
just
yeah.
the amount of teenagers I've.
It's going everywhere.
You're living. You did quarantine wrong. If you did not get into one of those things I just listed,
my
if you're a
God,
guy
yes.
and you did not get into any of those things I just listed, what were you doing?
Dude, I mean, I've been on quarantine for like fucking a year and a half because I was dealing with my court case beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, on house arrest for 8 months or whatever, and then I went right into the quarantine, which we actually just got off of, or we're just now getting away from it. I mean, but in Texas at least.
In Texas, because we're Texas.
Yeah, in Texas because it's Texas.
Mhm.
But hey, vaccines are coming out, so we're all good. Pound it, do it up. Oh wait, no, you didn't get a vaccine.
I'll get to it.
Oh, you'll get to
I'll
it.
get to it.
Get your microchip, bro. I can if I put my shoulder, my right shoulder up to those tap to pay, things on like payment, whatever's. I can trigger it, with my microchip. Just do a little boom, and then it siphons off my credit card information. It's pretty cool.
Anti-vaxxers be like.
Yeah. Anyway, we were hitting about an hour and a half long of a session, maybe 2 hours. So I think it's about time we end this conversation. Matthew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm glad you're the one to record this is my first recording session. This might not be my first episode, but this is the first time I'm recording a podcast. So it's been very, very fun.
Well, thank you for having me on. It has been a really fun conversation.
Is there anything you want to plug?
I'm an average guy, JD. What do I have to plug?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, if you enjoyed listening to my voice, if you enjoyed listening to, well, I guess me, Matthew doesn't have anything to plug, but you can find me on various social media websites under the name Just JD Was Taken. I have a website, justjd.net. You can go to that. And if you want to listen to me rap, which is pretty cool, you can find me at Just JD on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your music from. So I guess, I don't know. That's it. Peace.